Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, everybody, for joining us today in our ResearchIN series. This series is being conducted live on WebEx as its main platform, and it is also being live streamed on Arts USM Facebook. So thank you for being here. Good afternoon here in Malaysia, and I believe it is very early morning over there. Dr. Marcin Zbiec, yeah. Okay, so without further ado, we are very happy to have with us today, Associate Professor Dr. Marcin Zbiec from Institute of Wood Sciences and Furniture, Warsaw University of Life Sciences in Poland. So I don't know. I mean, I think it should be autumn at this point, Marcin.
Everything is perfect.
Everything is perfect. Must be a very wonderful, autumn season over there. So the title of our session today is Design for Fabrication, Unsuccessful Story about the Development of a Common Language between Future Designers and Engineers. Okay. So this session will be moderated by our very own academic fellow, Mr. Ahmad Fairuz Ariff, and also be assisted by our own head of department of product design, Dr. Siti Sohaili Surip. Okay, so without further ado, I will hand over to Mr. Ahmad Fairuz Ariff to give Dr. Marcin Zbiec a proper introduction. Okay, over to you, Mr. Fairuz.
Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon. Today, Friday, 29 September. Today, Wednesday, 29 September 2021. We meet again in ROF with our new presenter. All of you are invited to join ROF today through WebEx and or Facebook Live. A bit of the presenter background. The presenter today is Dr. Marcin Zbiec, born in May 23rd, 1970 in Warsaw, Poland. Now he is attached in an Institute of Wood Science and Furniture, Warsaw University of Life Sciences. He will share his knowledge and experience related to the topic of designing for fabrication, success story about developing for a common language between future designers and engineers. A brief abstract related to the presenter's topic. The aim of the experiment is to create an innovative furniture design workshop for students, which will be used for future designers and engineers who will not only focus on the design, but also on the manufacturing and fabrication issues. The design and technology student will work together with their ability to implement the design, develop innovation in products, method use, or services. The general target is empower future designers and manufacturers to think all the way through the process of experiencing the first-hand and preparation of designers, technologists, tandems or terms ready to cooperate with industries. About the experience, for your information, Dr. Marcin Zbiec gained a lot of experience and knowledge in this design field, from design up to technical expert. Okay, starting from 1919, which he completed his diploma of electronic technician. 1944, completing his study at Buckinghamshire College of Brunel, University of Oxford. 1996, in Faculty of Wood Technology with engineer and Masters of Science Diploma. His master's thesis entitled Influence of Tools Jointing on Feed Force and Surface Quality in Milling. He has completed his doctorate thesis entitled Tool Wears Diagnosing in Milling of Wood-Based Material. Doctorate PhD degree was awarded in 2004. November 2020 to present, he received Alliance of Centres of Vocational Excellence Award in the furniture and wood sector Project deal with creation of COVE for becoming the key catalyst for the EU vet policy with 22 partners and 8 EU country involved. And he also is a member of Erasmus grant, a collaboration grant between himself and USM, appointed as fellow academic in School of Technology Industries 2021. So without further ado, I will pass the floor to Dr. Marcin Zbiec. Okay, to you, Dr. Marcin.
Thank you for magnificent introduction. Thank you for the host for inviting me here. And let me share the screen with the presentation. Without further ado, we have. Here we go.
Okay.
In a few words and a little bit explanation, I'm not a designer. In fact, I'm a technologist. Like all of my education and work came through the technology field, but design is a kind of a hobby, and cooperation with designers, quite a lot of designers at this moment, has some history, and I wanted to share this story with you. It is not a factual academic research. This is a story of how it goes and how the small social experiment of me as a teacher went with the collaboration of somebody different than to be engineers and technologists and furniture technologists especially. So this is both successful and unsuccessful story about this cooperation. The thing started some years ago from the call of Academy of Arts in Warsaw. They asked for help because they had a whole year of students, was a several one of those, which had chosen the furniture design as a specialization and especially working with wood. And the problem was nobody was teaching technology. So we have decided to pay a visit, to have an overview with one of the not biggest, but the family factory of Aristo, which name you do not know, but this is a factory which sells under the brand of IKEA sometimes Geberit, which is known. They basically manufacture mostly kitchen and the bathroom furniture, which is a special technology because everything needs to be more or less waterproof. So this is not the easy fabrication. So we went there, and I went there as an expert to explain to the students and ask them any questions, how to came up with the solution, not exactly only beautiful, but working and sellable and cheap enough to be sold and technologically correct and providing the less of errors. And from that point, I had a cooperating young guy, MSc Paweł Osiewicz, from the Academy of Arts, and we have decided to do the social experiment because you know how the teaching process and teaching qualifications, everything is rather strict. So we have decided that we are going to do the workshop. Which consists of designers, to be designers and to be engineers, working together on the product design connected with product technology. So this is the keyword of design for fabrication. How to do the product which is technologically correct and qualifies for production, for selling, and would be sellable, would be priced right, and would be functional enough to work it. And we have decided to form a group. It was a group of something like 16 people, maybe 18, like an 8 group. The forms have teams has formed naturally. We have started with some lectures and social interactions of teaching design and design thinking to engineers and providing the information how the designer work and teaching the technology for the designers. So providing them how the actual technologies, how the engineer works in the factory and what the challenges he must face. Anyways, the thing started forming working groups, like two groups teams with the designer, to be designer and to be engineer, and start common dissertation project and develop common language. From, if I remember right, we 8 teams formed, so 16 people, and we have gave them the task of designing the everyday use items with woods, develop both product in the designer way of thinking, technology, so develop product in terms of technology also, prototype, and actually get a degree from that. It was aimed at the BSc of Arts and BSc of Technology. That's to find a common language. And what happened? Actually, this is a total failure, almost. Because 6 of the 8 teams formed naturally during the lectures just fell apart because of something. One, we have half-baked. I do not have a proper presentation for the product because everything has gone. There is lots of photographs which has gone from the computer. It was some years ago. Anyways, this was actually designed made by a technologist. As you can see it, this is a simple desk lamp. The novelty was that like 20 of those lamps can be done from the one single sheet of plywood. So it's relatively cheap. The very simple machining, because this was only the sole and nothing more basically. And the novelty of that was that it could be formed and there is no cables inside because they're forming a Helgin structure where the aluminum rods based on the sides, and they were actually connecting 12 volts to the lightning source, so there was no additional cables inside the lamp and no additional wiring. Everything went through the construction itself. So this is a design made by engineer, and as you can see, it's functional, sellable, cheap, and everything is fine except the looks, which could be better. But anyways, this is a technologically correct product which could be ready for production. I don't know if somebody has started, but I saw later on many of similar designs with the crosscut of the plywood so it could be bent. So probably someone took the idea from it later on. So this is a one half baked, and there is a baked one. We had a team of Natalia Kitamikado, which is actually Japanese for a change, and one of the engineers of ours, to be engineers, and they got a task of designing the eyeglasses out of wood. But the constraint of those eyeglasses, which are usually sold, made in China mostly, are that these are not very sturdy products. So we have tried to develop the sunglasses which could actually be put into the back pocket of your trousers, sit down, get up, and all those glasses are still in one piece and nothing fell off, nothing broken. So actually the wood was not that proper material for that because of the anisotropy and relatively low strength. But anyways, the prototypes has went and we have come a long way into the designing the material, trying to cut out with laser, with the CNCs. The material finally, after several works, was something like a very complex composite of fiberglass, carbon fiber, and wood pressed in forms and cut by laser, and the not to put the additional stress on those, we have obviously fabricated also CNC cut was, as well as you see on the right picture. And you can see the structure. It is quite complex of the composite. We have made, I think, like 50 prototypes of the thing to be sturdy enough to be sellable and not to crack, and possibility of giving warranty for the product. Anyways, the prototypes has come. They both got nice diplomas, and one startup came out of this. This was Rano. It was run for something like 3 years, I presume, and like a boutique glasses for somebody willing, quite expensive, quite successful, until Chinese manufacturing went with lower prices. We cannot compete really because of the cost of fabrication. But anyways, they have run the startup for something like 3 years. After that, boutique glasses placed in Warsaw. And I have taken the chance to have a look lately. What are they doing now? So at this very moment, my engineer from the glasses went to supporting railway companies in the digitization. This is my engineer. But our designer, Natalia, he actually is costume designer for the opera and theaters, and recently got a Ring Award 2021 for the costumes for Don Giovanni. This is a Ring Award, is one of the most prominent awards in costume designs in this. So I'm quite happy because they went up nicely. But the trouble was the success rate was not really enough, because the 1 out of 8 and quite a large amount of work which was put into the process doesn't really allow something to be feasible and funded by the universities, because you cannot really have a success rate of 15%. This is not really good. And so the private experiment went in another phase. We have organized training workshops, roughly a year of work, probably a year and a half as well. And the success rate, 12.5%, half success rate, 25%, and failure, 75%. So this was not really something which could be implemented really on a daily basis. We have started to think about how to change it. And coming from the centralized era into the centralized era of like a pieces era to Aquarius era, like all the universities are working still in the pieces scheme, means centralized, everything runs centrally and goes on. In arts are less concerned about this, by the engineering as well. So we have decided to try another way and just stay open and see who comes. Just see who comes with the problem to be solved, and prototyping and having a design into sellable product or graduation. And the thing started with Paweł Jasiewicz, now designer. We got the first problem in terms of equipping with some furniture the model house. It was a model house, quite known thing, a model house made of larch into the forest with the trees growing in. It was very, very, very different than anything you usually live in, because there was even a home cinema in the basement and many non-standard utilities. And our work was to design a table which could held up the sorry, I've switched the mic, which could held up into the 12 person. Actually, some designs went with it. It was a standard fancy cloth hanger, which was a deviation of something usually used in England in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, but made not by steam bending wood, but the mechanical bending without the process of steaming, so you can have the effect. Designer was Pavel, and me and my friend was taking care of the production and technologization this design of the how to make it productable and actually functional without the too much waste. So this is a one product. The second product was participation of Adam Smith expedition in New York, and this was actually exhibition of the famous Polish designer Mr. Regalik. But anyways, we have been given the task of designing the defense which could be transported by airplane and shipped by airplane, so light enough, and you see the effects of our fence showing the boundary of the furniture exhibition. It was quite successful. I think Regalik got some award for that. I can't remember exactly, but he is now one of the, I think, #1 of designers in Poland. So I'm quite happy I could participate in the success. And the next design which came up, it was this Polygon table, and the table that could sit from 8 to 20 people. And the deal was, it has to be put together in two ways. That all those 8 people or 20 people do not see each other or see each other. It highly depending on the situation of the discussion. And this is what we came up with. That was very complex structure, lots of money. I think the simple one undercarriage of those on this table has something like a 200 welds made from stainless steel and American cherry table. Everything was held by magnets, so all those tables were clumping together, independent how you put them. Anyways, what a good success. It sold. The house itself sold very well. One of the most prominent lawyers in Warsaw has bought the whole house, including all the furniture, for lots of money. So investor was quite happy. And you see the house, how it looked. There's nothing really which you usually see in the building industry and the housing market. There was no single straight line. It was a whole built on pentagons. So these solutions were also different. Anyways, what we got now? Pavel, which started the design work with us and having made those 3 prototypes, now he's one of the best known designers in terms of wooden furniture in Poland. Quite a prominent. I think he was the first designer who got the opportunity to design, first designer in Poland, who got the opportunity to design for the IKEA and has his own collection. So quite a good, great what the things went up. And he's designing mostly the furniture. Recently, he has started a company of the furniture for the rich people, basically. Small carpentry with exclusive designs for the rich. And he's quite successful on that. And after that, the students came, the actual students from the BSc. And one of the first things we have done was the wooden bath. It is not the easiest. I think it's the hardest thing you could make out of wood, because the wood actually swells and shrinks and does whatever you want with water. So it had to be perfectly sealed, and the aim was to do it cheaply. So we have been starting to do it with the cheapest wood possible, like a pine, gluing the things together and fabricating. I'm not going to tell you details because we have patented the process of preservation and sealing the wood. Anyways, this was done, it could be done in two ways. We have recently solved this process, one of the two processes to EcoWood. One of the major producers of the wooden sinks in Poland, this is being produced in Poland, in Europe actually, because they sell for. Hello. Anyways, to be engineer designer has his own studio now and builds a custom furniture for the custom orders, quite inexpensive ones, but they are doing fancy things. And our design of the bath took, I think we have filled it with water and sealed for a couple of weeks, and then checked against the weight change if it doesn't sink any of the water into the wood. It didn't, because you have to have all the plumbing in good dimensions, not changing dimensions, anyways it would leak. Fine thing is the technology is developed, the product was made, the prototype was made, everything was perfectly, and the guy has his own company and does those things and very many different things. And then the next students came with something like, please help me do my diploma because I cannot prototype really. And they came with the very things. This is actually the prototype of furniture for dormitory to the cramped space so the students could work and have storage, and it takes only one wall and 60 centimeters of space from the wall to have a cupboard and a workspace, like not real desk, regular desk, but just some personal space to take a work. Very small, very cramped, very designed. This was obviously prototyped, and how we can show different color versions and different constructions. I'm not going to go into details because it was some upholstery to make it cheaply. There was block boards to make it. Everything was quite cheap and complex to manufacture because it was one-off. Anyways, guy came with the diploma, obviously, and his work, all of you know. Like back in the packaging designer, he worked several years from those, so his work is quite popular at the world, despite his name not being very popular, because everything goes for the company. And the next came for the Young Libera, which was having an idea of designing some kids' desk with some free-forming spaces and possibility of putting like a Lego blocks for the kids of the age up to 7. And we have prototyped it, obviously. And Young Libera is after a few years, one of the most well-known designers in Poland, I think in Europe, but he is mostly designing the glass and the transportation. He came up that doesn't want to design the furniture, and he's much better with sensoring, electronics, and metal. So what he does, recently, quite successful, I saw him a couple years ago, I think, a year ago at the Fair Trade. He was exhibiting and trying to selling these designs for the furniture companies. Anyway, he has lots of work and lots of money nowadays. The next design, which was another diploma made by Dominika Wysogląd. The idea was to make a wall cover, basically, sound absorbing. And as you can see, the prototyping of this thing was made in toaster. Finally, after many designs, we came up with a design which utilizes Stako insulation boards, which is basically wood fiber coming with some nylon network inside, so they can be pressed in the quite low temperature into the shape and easily glued into the fully welded panels. So the actual panels were producing with a very simple form and clothing, gluing and cutting up to the size. It became extremely cheap in terms of it is a level of the traditional paper wallpaper, because the production does require only the insulation board and some clothing. So anyways, quite a successful prototype. And after some years, I have checked, he's a designer. She works really designing the logos and books and calendars and this sort of stuff on the world's market. Probably these lease could be that they are being sold in Malaysia or you saw it. And the next students came freely, which was Wojtek Tomaszewski. He came with the design of something like a desk, which could be easily foldable, and all the mess, if you lift it up, will came into the slots, so you don't have to clean after yourself. And quite reluctant we are to making this prototype. Quite reluctant we were to have this prototype because it didn't totally make sense and being sellable product. But after some years, I have noticed something very similar in the IKEA catalog. So probably there was something which was somebody saw it, somebody took the advantage of that, and the product is being sold. Wojtek stayed quite along with us because he has made also a quite innovative furniture out of fold veneers. This you can see. This is a modular furniture out of steel and wood. There are legs which are being from folded wood, folded veneers, and glued together. This is phenol resin. It's not very healthy, but we had to keep it very, very, very strong. The collection was sold somewhere. He got an MSc diploma on designing this because it was very, very fancy and quite popular. Design in the shops, especially. And after checking what he does now after those two works done with us, industrial designer at Yamaha Design from Japan. So I think it got success story in having changing his interest from the furniture into the consumer electronics mostly. He works in Japan for Yamaha at this very point. And the next thing came. This was actually funded for someone because there was a sawmill who had loads and loads of not possibly being used, the wastes coming from the very resinous wood. It was a sawmill which was dealing with pine mostly, and this pine has sapwood and lots of resin, and those sometimes they couldn't sell anything from this point of view because it is not really good to make anything out of it because it's sticky. Smells nicely, but it's sticky, cannot be painted, cannot be burnt even for fuel because you have a lot of black smoke and not suitable for heating application, which is the easiest way of getting rid of waste. So Magda actually have think of something, how to utilize this, how to utilize the smell of this wood itself. It was made basically for cedar, but ended up on pine. And this design was also quite successful because this is a very small heater and wood cut into different pieces to provide the resin smell for the whole house, made entirely out of waste. And they are selling this at this moment. And Magda actually, after a couple of years, she get a good second diploma, and she became psychologist and psychotherapist, and she designs the jewelry. And she's selling in that lab portfolios, her design. I think you see she is very minimalistic in terms of design, but very nice person, very clever. And the next came freely, Jan Ludwig, which is, I think, is the best example of the career. This was his BSc diploma in design, I think. He was designing the special chair like an ergonomic one. The funny thing is it doesn't have a seat, really. The seat is made entirely out of the foam. We have been prototyping those. He got a diploma from that. Everything is quite complex to construct, and it is not sellable product really because it is too complex and nobody wants to cut the angles because it is always a problem in production. But anyways, like a diploma it went. And then came the other things from Ludwig. We have been asked to design a boats. The boats were just toys, but they were going to the sea days. And the basic thing of those boats were they had to flow in salty water, but not in the sweet water. So this is the idea of double keels, you see. This is electric, and we have some electronics in there because the salty water conducts electricity, and after amplification, it can be used to propel the thing. There was a couple of designs, and we had a whole exhibition of those on the sea days at the Baltic Sea. Very nice design. We were very happy because it was lots of kids playing and very good fun of making those prototypes, but quite challenging. And the next thing came from Ludwig. And this was his first professional work. He has made a collection with our help, of course, because it was a design and we have developed the technology for that to make of the whole furniture sets which were being sold to Warsaw City for the property fair trade, and all those furniture were exhibited in Germany and France, and the whole Grow with Warsaw stand of property trade of Poland was equipped with Ludwig's designed and me-made furniture. The whole collection. That was a lots of work and very exhausting. As you can see, this is one byproduct came with that, because after that, as you probably have seen, the white wood furniture and bleached furniture became very popular. So it was the first designs of bleached ash. I think it was from ash. And oak and whatever you want was put into production with bleaching, so extremely white, despite the natural color of those woods are quite different. So special chemistry had to be developed for that. Finally, some Italian company has made the proper solution to bleach the wood and not discolor it too deeply or not to degrade too deeply to not to be possible to paint it or preserve it in any other ways. As you can see, despite the construction on the left, it was strength tested on the exhibition. So trade was quite successful, and we had a good point in that career move, especially for Ludwig. And the next thing came. And this is a very interesting story, because what you see is a leg. The leg doesn't look really especially interesting despite the construction. But if you put it together, you have a stool. And this stool has a Red Dot Award and 3 other awards in the world in terms of design. And I have to tell you, to develop technology for that, it took us, I think, 15 prototypes to make it properly. We have done like a 15 more. The technology is extremely complex, but finally the product is very cheap because this is a bunch of cheap veneers glued together. The deal was how to glue together the thing, how to develop a solution for the glue for that, so it keeps together. Anything's 4 awards, including Red Dot for Janek, and we have manufactured, I think, like a 30 of those just for exhibitions. And now I think he's one of the most known designer of young generation in Poland, and his work is quite popular. Even the Culture Pearl, he was selected as an artist of the 20 years. So I'm quite happy having worked for the guy and having developed with him all those solutions. Next one. And it was a BSc Diploma in Arts of Tomasz Korzewski, which was quite complex because it was a set of the furniture and bench press to make an apple juice, and actually about any fruits for the agrotourism and the house on the village where you have the apple trees and peach trees, whatever you want. Totally reproducible, and this was made out of something. As far as I remember, the bench press was from tractor, just covered with the stainless steel to make it possible to use with food, and some of the very unusual solutions to be light, to be carryable. This was a whole furniture set. Anyways, despite making this diploma very reproducible, guy is quite successful because he mostly designs books and illustrations, not that much of a industrial product, but the magazines and graphics, and he's quite known in the designers society. And the next lady which came, Aleksandra Żeromska, and we have been thinking about the lamps in terms of lighting and doing some evolutionary stuff. This doesn't look somewhat special except the form, but if you notice into this lamp, there is a built-in aluminum network. Aluminum net, this is actually 2 aluminum nets. And the deal of those designs was that the 12 volts and current can be transported within the material itself, so it doesn't need additional cables, and the lightning can be put almost everywhere into the board, into any place. Just you have to grab the 2 sides of the material. The design was quite successful. It was sold in some pieces. I can't remember now if it was awarded somewhere, but the lady herself actually works from the Ladro design team, and Ladro is, I think, world's best known company of lighting in Barcelona, Spain, and she is a quite famous designer working for this company. As I'm still in contact, and actually there was a lot more. I just didn't have all the pictures, the things we have done. It was, I think, like a 5 or 6 person more with some success stories, but I couldn't find in short time the proper pictures of the thing we have developed, because there was not always time for making documentation. But in terms of changing the centralized way of governing the education into the decentralized way, in terms, come on, we are open, just pop in and we'll try to develop something what you need. And this was 100% success story. I have to tell you that we had a lot of fun during those some years of work. I can't remember how many it was, like 3 or 5 years. 18 people from what I remember, could be more. And all of them have made a nice professional career. All of them are known, and to be exact, in terms of success rate and in terms of professional career, I think only two of them became engineers and worked in production, but 16 out of those became designers, and they're quite well known designers. So this is a different story. The technology and the design itself, they very much need to live together, but the usually candidate for the making and prototyping is not the technologist. It is the designer which needs to learn technology, and that was the way we came. We came from teaching into the design more than technology itself, because it is much more fun for students and the effects are better. And I have very different stories. I have stories which we had a designer who became a technologist. I have stories which the technologist who became a designer, and everything went into the prototyping. And what I have to tell you, the sum up of the experiment is that you cannot centralize it, and you cannot do really proper teaching, lectures, and so on. If the guys have to solve themselves some problems and have help in solving them problems, their knowledge beams up. There are effects of such education, in my opinion, not probably objective, but I have a proof. The success rate is 100% of decentralized and having those people coming, only those who will want to make the proper thing, to prototype the thing, and to just make their living on designing things for the people. In this time, instead of 12% or maybe 15% success rate, we had a 100% success rate. So I will think, in case, because I have loads of questions, I think, in the chat, and we'll have some discussion. So thank you for attention. Press like if you want. About my story with design and my social experiment. Quite successful in terms of connecting designers and engineers and retransforming designers into engineers and engineers into design in both ways. Thank you. So I presume I
Thank you,
maybe leave
Dr.
this
Marcin.
one, and we will come to the questions if you have any. I see a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Marcin, for your nice and very good presentation. We have a lot of students and all the participants from inside and outside University Science Malaysia. To all of you, welcome to the ResearchIN today. we with our presenter from Poland, Dr. Marcin. So if you have any question, you can send through Facebook Live, or you can on your microphone and direct ask Miss Dr. Marcin the question, and also you can type your question in the chat box. So Dr. Marcin, we have a lots of questions. If you read
Yeah, we have
in
a
the
lot.
chat box, yeah.
I was looking at those popping in.
Okay, maybe we can go through one by one. The question number one there, maybe you can read by your own. Because
Something, I presume that something will arise on the way also.
okay,
But
never mind. So you can read which question that you want first, and you want to pick then one
I
question
think
first.
I'll
Yeah.
go chronologic way, the first in, first out. Defining a good furniture designer in the age of technology, quite complex thing, but from what I see and the career paths, uh, the most successful are the people of Renaissance. I mean, of very extended hobbies. Because the age of technology needs to be taken into account, especially in electronics, computers, and so on and so on. And usually, it is this way that those people who try to explore themselves, try to buy and put together a 3D printer or a small CNC even for homework are more interested and came much better in terms of design. There was a long story about the designers, especially here, because like 20 years ago, the deal in designers having work and being employed into the companies like IKEA and the smaller companies like Geberit, like Artisan of the Danish, like Dovista company of the Denmark, which produces, I think, 70% of the product with us. They always employed the Italian designers. And why was it? The popular opinion was the people from North have their brain frozen in winter, so they cannot think. But the usual solution was that the Italy educates the designer very price-wise. So the first question which takes into account the designer, having the designer brief looked at, is how much it needs to cost. And designers are very well educated in cost estimation. This is much different from the rest of the Europe, and this is why the Italians were made so famous, because they have really designing like a accounting manager and they designing from the cost. But technology actually it is very important in terms of having the design made for the younger generation, and technology is always an eye candy for them. And properly, those guys, if you are teaching and having starting the design design of their lives, they will need to use technology because the whole market growing in uses the technology from 20 years. And now the potential customers, which are 20, 30 years old, those will be buying the products in majority, and they are digital society already.
Okay,
Yes.
Dr. Marcin, can we relate to the question number two? Are material problems also take into account in the making of the design in the Poland, especially?
100%. 100%. The material problems in terms of design are I think this is the number one problem because of the costs, because of the specific fabrication, and all those things came with the knowledge, all those things came with the experience. And even if you have the knowledge and experience and start prototyping, you will be surprised. what comes up. I have saw numerous stories of things which cannot be made from certain materials for very unpleasant and different reasons, like chemical reasons, mechanical reasons, temperature reasons, and sudden chemical reactions of not possible to be painted because of the not actually trying to prototype the actual product and put it to the production. Even the production itself needs to have the material science. This is the last experience 2 months ago. I was called by the company producing the doors and windows because they had surprisingly good amount of the bad product and failures in terms of painting, and all I have discovered was improper treating of material and not keeping the proper moisture content in wood during the production. The company employs 2,500 people. This is a huge company which produces doors and windows, and they didn't put the expected attention into the production, and the actual material problem was the storage of temporal storage before the production, which was not moisturized properly, and the elements have the surface to dry, and all we have the lacquering problems. So material science is, I think, number one in terms of selling this product afterwards. The designer needs to know it and needs to prototype.
Okay, how about question number 3? Compare with designers, how the engineers explore.
I like designers more.
Okay.
Personally, because the designers are curious. I don't know what's the reason for that, but the actual designers, in terms of the schooling, they are, from what I saw, I still have some lectures for the designers in terms of material science and general prototyping and engineering. But this is most like a consultation of the lectures itself. Very, very formal meetings. Anyways, I have noticed that they are bored to death with the design methodology and so on.
Yeah.
And they crave the knowledge of how to actually make things, because they have lots of ideas and they do not know the material science and the production science. They are extremely interested in terms of putting their designs into practice and having this prototype. And this is the designer, at least the young designer, work mostly, because they have a background in thinking, but they do not have a background in chopping and in manufacturing and producing. And how engineers explore the problem. And this is a different story. 90% of the engineers first want to negotiate the pay, the salary, and then try to think of the problem. Usually, 90% of the engineers are not personally involved into solving the problems at the factory level. They just do it because they are being paid for. And designer, other way, he's 90% interested and 10% does it as a factory. So in terms of employing the people for the conceptual thinking and innovation thinking, I like designers a lot, because the designers in terms of furniture and wood, this is actually low barrier industry. You do not need to have a lot of knowledge. This is a specific knowledge, but this is not rocket science. The barrier is quite low. So I think to make a perfect hybrid, you need like 2/3 of design, 1/3 of technology.
Let's see.
If you do opposite, it is not quite successful. But I prefer to teach designers technology than technologists technology for that reason, because the majority is much more interested.
Okay, related to question number 4, which most of the designers are being tied up with manufacturer constraint. Therefore, the designers cannot be free in expressing their design.
I think you I
Yeah,
think you have skipped one from the chat.
I know, but this one is related to the previous question.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
let me check it.
So yeah, so I repeat the question. Most of the designers are being tied up with the manufacturing constraint. Therefore, the designers cannot be free in expressing their design. Any solution towards solving this matter?
Uh, I don't think so. I don't think so, because the manufacturing constraint, we have came up to the different era, because we have came up during the last 100 years of things being expensive and from lights to the things being available to everybody, even with the low salaries. And at this very point, as you can see, which was especially visible during the last year, the huge companies manufacturing a lot of product have the more money for advertising and more money for product placement and more money for actual development of the product. I don't know if any of you have came through IKEA process of product development.
Okay.
It is unbelievable detailed. They are been doing, even the simple stool has something like 100 pages of documentations on materials, on possible dangers, on possible manufacturing problems, on reports on testing, reports on aging of the furniture, and so on, so on. This is very cheap and bad furniture, but this is so well engineered. Even the chipboard used in IKEA is different, because they are actually designing chipboard especially for their furniture, so they cannot be dismantled and assembled again. This is especially designed for crack after dismantling. And in that terms, it is very hard to designer to survive only on free expression, because if he does the free expression, he creates amazing products. But those products are not always 100% functional, because it is no point of making the for one-offs or short series the whole aging, development, trading risk studies. This is the first thing, because it is too costly. And the second thing, there is a very limited market. It is a very limited market. This is collector's items or just rich people's houses. So the clients are very limited. I do have now, I think, like 2 companies in the direct neighborhood who do the exclusive furniture, mostly to USA and Japan. In one-offs, they charge a lot of money, they employ designers, but this is like a show furniture, not the product which could be famous of. It is a dream of a designer mostly to get the work for the corporation, because their name are being put in the product in millions of exemplars, not the single one which you can do on the exhibition and be famous and deployed for a couple months. If you put your name on the IKEA table or something like that, you're famous forever, and you have job offers forever because of the scale. So I think this is the deal. And recently, as you probably noticed, the quality and overall looks of the furniture in mass production like a corporate production, improved a lot. You go to the supermarket and you see things you like. 20 years ago, it was not the case. There was nothing really fancy. Now at this point, it has developed in a really good way, and usually even the corporate mass-produced furniture is reasonably nice and reasonably allowing the designers of expressing their thoughts and their artistic souls. So I'm quite happy in that direction. Obviously, there is always a market for one-offs, but this is a market for one-offs. You need to get in a proper company to live off this thing actually, because you cannot live off the one design a year or one design in 2 years. You need to make it on a constant way to survive, and this is the deal probably.
Maybe we can go to the question number 4. What is Poland's contribution of the European market for furniture export?
Huge. The Poland is actually not known as a producer in terms of the first hand. What is the problem? We are, I think, at this point, we are world's number 2 or 3 exporter. I think we are second after China.
Oh, yeah.
At this very point, despite the Poland is a relatively small country because it is similar to Malaysia. And what is the deal with this? First off, we have wood like Malaysia does. Our wood mostly comes from our forest and Siberia. This is one of the hugest forests in the world. The second thing is the type of wood used for furniture, because the furniture is mostly bought by wild world, and they are focusing on implementation of those traditional European basically species like an oak, like an ash, like a pine, like a something, because this is what is being thought by them by Italian and Scandinavian designers. So this is the deal that we are producing as well. And I'm not proud of the second position. The third position now, I think, is an expert. We are overtaken by the China and USA, and we have surpassed Germany. But this third position is export, is actually in kilograms. So what is the reason for that? We just produce it cheaply. This is a technology which is foolproof and is being developed to the foolproofism. I have to tell you the unbelievable things in the profit margin. What do you think there is a profit margin of the furniture company? Just first thing which came to your mind. How much profit they make over the turnover? Usually someone would think that this is something like a 20%, right? This is a rule name. In Poland, it is not the case. The hugest factories are living off 3% margin. 3% margin is the profit margin from the composite. So this is I think there is only one country which in Europe which produces cheaper per kilogram furniture, and this is Lithuania. But this is country of 5 million people, so they do not have a capacity to produce more and overtake. But at this point, this third place in the world is not really good thing, because we produce cheap furniture per kilogram and loads of furniture, and this is usually being sold under some brand. Like I think the 40% of world's production is being placed here of IKEA, the only company. So this is the deal. They sell the furniture under different brands. So this They are not known. In some countries they are, but not many. I think then in Asian countries, the Polish furniture, which is being sold as a Polish furniture, is only in Mongolia for some reason, and became popular for some reason. And the Mongolian advertisement of Polish furniture is bigger than Coca-Cola, so probably they like it. But this is the only country which really does have the Polish brand in the market.
Okay. Question 5. In Poland, what kind of prototyping tools do you use?
I don't think that is a different than anywhere else, because the famous prototyping in terms of using the 3D printing and CNCs and these things which are being shown over the internet is too expensive, like a one-off. The first prototypes are usually, in terms of visual prototypes, are usually made by hand because this is the cheapest way for one-offs. In terms of further prototyping, like first prototype series, to develop technology properly, to set the tools, to set the cutting speeds, painting speeds, the lacquer thicknesses and technology, these are being made actually using the CNC technology mostly. But the first prototyping is done by hand, and I wouldn't change that because actually, if you do it by hand, you see much more problems than you can see doing the CNC machining. In terms, if you're doing by hand, you can have a manufacturing error like 10 times in doing one surface. But in terms of CNC, you most likely will have a manufacturing error once in a 10 exemplars. So you have to make 10 prototypes or 100 prototypes to really see where the potential production mistakes and errors will be made. So first prototyping is 100% by hand, and nobody will change it. Visual prototyping, obviously 3D printing or just some marketing, but marketing. But production prototyping is an actual made according to the technology it will be manufactured. First by hand.
Okay. So next question. How do you handle it if your original design has been copied by a bigger company and is more successfully than your own? What will you do in this situation to show your design worth? So another question is, how do you trademark your design before it is released?
I have to tell you that the solution of this problem is time. Because in the countries which have the quite developed law system and they are cooperating a lot with the international trade, it is not really profitable to steal the design because you won't have the customers in the future. You have a bad reputation. In Malaysia, from what I saw, because I have visited, it is still possible. In stealing of the design in Poland was possible something like 20 years ago was absolutely no problem. But if the country itself needs to put the name and increase export, if you have a single case or second case of property rights infringement, you are shut. You are finished. I mean, the whole company wouldn't be able to export for these reasons. And this will come with time. You will see. So in this situation, if your original design has been copied, you cannot do that much if it's a big company. They usually don't do it for these image reasons. But if they do, they usually, if they really badly want to, and they do it, they usually cluster patent the visual design around your own design, so you cannot produce it, you cannot sell it nowhere else, and you have to sell it the company. And this is the way they deal with designers. If the price is not right, they try to get the cluster patenting around of the technical solutions made in the particular piece, or the trying to buy it cheap if you want. So highly depends. If you do the situation to, so if somebody has copied your design, you just go for the expertise. You can do the expertise at the university or in the association of producers. There is, I think, like four institutions which you can order. I mean, four types of institutions which you can order expertise. It is usually not very expensive. It is something like a 2,000 or 3,000 ringgits, just a simple expertise stating it is being copied or not, and you just go to court. But you won't win with a huge company as anywhere else because you do not have enough money for that, usually. So people are trademarking designs. I think the most popular and most common way is just to publish it over the internet, because the patenting itself, to have patent provided in terms of European patent or Polish patent or European patent, it is something like 5 years of waiting. So basically nobody does it because the design itself after 5 years becomes outdated, unless this is a technological solution. This is a different story because the technology can be used longer, but design in terms of visual, nobody patents, they just publish it and hope for the best.
I see. Okay. So another question.
Before this, before that, Mr. Fairuz, I think we'll
Do you have another
question.
time?
Yeah, from Afif.
Yeah.
The question is, what are the qualities you look in the design? The question number 5, because they have question number 5 2 times.
Question, contributions.
What are the qualities you're looking in a design?
Yeah.
Well,
it's from Afif,
my-
our student.
My background as an engineer, because I am engineer, I am a hobbyist designer only and working with designers. In terms, if I look at the design, visual aspect is the first thing. It needs to look, because this is the eyes which buy the product. But afterwards, even yesterday I had a consultation with the students who came up with something like inbuilt desk computer or whatever, and the whole thing looked like a budget table, so nobody would buy it. The thing is, in terms of today's times, I think that the afterlooks comes the philosophy of the product. This is my personal opinion, biased, totally biased. The philosophy of the product in terms of how could you be having this product, how you can show off, how you can present the world that you have this product and you like it, own it or produce it. This is the second factor. And third factor is material. In terms of material, during the dramatically increasing material prices and recently energy prices, you need to save on something. And the best design, I think, in terms of possibility of being sold to company to actually produce is a light design. It does not need to use a lot of material. So the lighter the things get and simpler in terms of kilograms of material, and the processing power is the second thing, but kilograms of material is, I think, it is the most important thing, except the looks, in selling the actual design to the producer to produce it to be really manufactured on the bigger scale. It needs to be light. This is a weird, but at this point, this is the number one factor, except the looks.
Is it there any question, Mr. Fairuz?
Qualities, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the qualities. I think this is the three most qualities. One, looks, the second, philosophy, and three, saving on material. Do the simple as you can in terms of kilograms, because otherwise it cannot be sold. You cannot sell it. So this is the three main factors, I think, in my point of view.
Okay. All right. There's one question from N. Mustaqim Muhammad. Hello, doctor. I am a master student from a School of Arts. Now I'm planning to develop a sustainable materials for 3D printing. If I am using the 3D printing machine from a big brand in 3D printing, do I need to inform the company because I have used his product to develop the material? Okay, that is his question.
Well, this is a special question because it would need exquisite knowledge of the Malaysian legal issues. But I don't think so, because you are using 3D printing machine from a big brand in 3D printing. Do I need to inform the company? If you be successful, I think you would like to inform the company because you can make money on it. This is a good point in advertisement to the company that their machine was used in some experiments and in development, especially successful development of the material being tested. So let's see the big brands like a Creality or whatever you use. If they can advertise it that someone is using this machine for materials, I think they will like it, and I think they even will pay you.
All right. So this is the last question. So how do you predict the next design trend while meeting consumer expectation? That's the question.
The next design trend, we are living in very weird times, very digital times. And in terms of trends, I have lived through like three major changes. And one of the most prominent changes on the European market was coming from the black furniture into the white furniture. It sounds suspicious, right? It is the real case. In years of 90s and 2000, the majority of the furniture which was being sold on the European market was something which was very dark. This was the mostly Wenger, mostly. Wenger wood or something like a Wenger wood, like laminates of Wenger wood or fake Wenger wood, but this was dark black. This was something like 10 years of selling this furniture, and they were being sold everywhere on the market. And after I started working with the designers themselves came up with the idea of turning off these black furniture into the white furniture, of having chopping of these darker set colors into the real white and sterile Scandinavian looks of the furniture. I think the Scandinavian design is in this area regarded mostly more than Italian bench. But anyways, how it went. I've been prototyping these white woods and white furniture quite a long time and seeing those designs. And after that, the product branding, somebody has bought it, and all in the Netflix and popular television series, they have been showing interiors with the white furniture or bleached furniture. After 3 years, all the furniture, or like 70% of the furniture in the market was bleached, including the floors, like the white ones. So I don't think that customer expectation is a number one thing in terms of meeting the consumer expectation. The consumer usually expects something which he already saw. Majority of the people are not creative. Nobody asked RCA for a television set. They have produced the television set itself first, and then they added philosophy to the product so the consumer wants it. So I think this is the first point, that this is not really the consumer expectations, but product branding which consumer expects and sees before, like intentionally or not intentionally, and this is probably made only by the huge companies which could afford the product branding and localization and having this advertised in the movie, for example, like IKEA does, like all the manufacturers of the white and bleach furniture did like 10 years ago. And this was extremely successful because up to now, there is a lot of furniture which is almost white. People love it. In technology, it is a disaster. Because in technology, if you want to make white furniture, you need to skip a lot of the drying process. Because usually broad-leaved species are getting darker when seasoning, even the white ones. So in terms, if you want to do something which is almost white, you need to skip seasoning and do directly to the kiln and then try to bleach it additionally. And skipping seasoning means you have increasing tenfold number of production defects because it cracks afterwards. So this is a risky process, but this is what consumer thinks he wants. So I think this is the most thing. Probably, I hope that we are transducing into this from the centralized era into the decentralized era in terms of design and in terms of production, because world will be much better place if somebody with a smaller scale product could make money on that equally with a big corporation. This is my hope. But for now, I think the sad reality is it is not the consumer wants something, it is the consumer thinks he wants something. He's being told that he wants something. And this is the 70% of cases.
Okay. So the very, very last question. Okay. So what details are you sure to include the product blueprint? Okay, that's the question.
Yeah.
What details are you sure to include on a product blueprint?
Blueprints, I think like an ensuring in the product blueprint, design itself, I presume this is 10%. In the product blueprint, then you include the whole manufacturing process. If you are a good designer, you know how to optimize the look of the products to use as low amount of material as you want to, in terms of using the less plywood, less chipboard, less wood. This is the second thing, which is the optimization of design, despite material use, optimization of design in terms of manufacturing to simplify the process, but it's much less important than material use, actually, the complexity of production process. And the third thing which is probably, well, fourth thing, because the one is looks, so we need to sell. The second is optimization against material use. The third is optimization against the technology, how to simplify the process of manufacturing. And the fourth very, very important thing in terms of designing the fashion is FMEA, failure model and the defect analysis. In terms of the manufacturing process itself, in terms of consumer risk, in terms of using it. I have a funny story about this, about FMEA and the story of the Polish company which exported quite a large amount of furniture into the Sweden. It was some years ago, and they have been doing the bathroom furniture. This was a quite expensive one because it needs to be almost waterproof, spill resistant, splash resistant, and so on. And they have put something like 1,500 pieces in one transport to be taken and mounted by developers into the fresh new dwellings. And what came up in place that in something like 10 of those furniture sets, the wall mounting hooks were missing. They were just not packed. So clever worker went to the store and just bought 10 sets of mount pieces to the wall. Just to supply, not to make big mess with calling the company, having special delivery and so on and so on. And everything went well in half a year. Somebody's I think it was something like a wardrobe, heavy furniture just fallen off, and there was an accident in the bathroom with somebody involved. And obviously it was determined that this one single piece was mounted not by factory design mount, but with something which the worker bought in the hardware store in Sweden.
Mhm.
And what is the preventive measure? You need to go to every customer in Sweden which have bought this furniture and check personally what kind of mount it is in the furniture. Is it factory one, or is it this hardware store bought one by the worker? It seems that was a clever move from the worker, but actually company bankrupted. Or was very close to bankrupt from this one single thing. Of somebody clever trying to understand, trying to improve the quality, not make a weakness, and buying some 10 months for $1 a piece. So this is the thing which needs to be taken into account into the design, and I think this is one of the mostly omitted things by the designers, that they do not try to do the failure mode and risk analysis in the furniture. Because if they do it, the experienced customer from corporation who orders the designs, he sees it at the first sight. Because he always looks at the furniture, if it is feasible to produce, on what kind of failure does it can have, or do we have the problems as a corporation with this particular piece of furniture. If the designer does this FMEA on the particular design of the furniture or in the other product, at first sight, the company buyer doesn't see it. So they have a much less work and much more likely to invest in the particular design, in the particular person, and just buy the design because of that. They have much less work in terms of implementing the design into the production. So this failure mode analysis in terms of material, in terms of production, and in terms of customer actually using it, it is very, very critical in within the area of actually selling your work to somebody who will pay a lot of money for it. So this is, I think, the product blueprint. These are the four most important factors. Just first the looks, because it buys, material use, simple technology, and extensive analysis of potential failures on any field. Because of the low margin, the company does not make a lot of money. They are living off 10% margin is a huge one. Usually it's something like a 5%. Huge companies go down to 3% margin. So they cannot afford failures. And this is what they buy.
Okay, from our Dean of Research and Industrialized On, Dr. Sarina Abdullah, so mentioned that Sylvester Jerusalem, thank you for Dr. Marcin for brilliant sharing. Product you share are definitely a source of inspiration from my student and myself. It reminds me to look back at Malaysian woods furniture because they are their own peculiar disadvantage and advantage. Okay, so that's from a word from our dean. So lastly, any words from you, Dr. Marcin?
I think I would like to thank you for the participation and being patient with me. I hope that I have brought something, and especially for students, because the success story is always good for students. And I presume this is the way to go, to look at the best and look what you can do with yourself and just turn into someone who knows your own value.
Okay.
And try to produce and develop things the best way you can for the people. I think is the best advice. The money will come. Just do for the people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marcin, for your very interesting presentation today. And thank you very much to all of you, the participants, for your time to join in our research in today. I'm sure that there is a lot of knowledge and experience that Mr. Marcin shared with us. And please don't forget to fill up the link for your PD point for the stuff that you have sent. And thank you for all the students, product design, for your participants. Dr. Serena, did you have any last words before we end this session?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Marcin Zbiec, okay, for being with us this afternoon or at the morning on your end. Okay, so for all participants, for all audience, give a big round of emojis on your WebEx screen right now for Dr. Marcin, okay? I mean, like, we couldn't, like, we could clap though on, at home. Okay, but yeah, it's nice to see all the emojis coming in. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Marcin, for your time. And yeah, and we hope to further, our network later. Okay, through the product design department. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hope we will meet again. Bye. Thank you to everyone.
Okay, bye bye.
Okay, thank you.
Assalamualaikum.